Kudo, and that is Kudo'o, that is greetings in the Aja or phone language of West Africa, primarily spoken in Benin. We are His Imperial Majesty Ahosu, the Ahosu. Ahosu means king. Agelo Bagan Akbavi the First, the Kilambo Hosu, and that is a title for those that practice the Maroon way of life, so far as monarchies go, or the Ganlodo Hosu, the Ahosu of Ganlodo, our monarchy, which was founded in 2012 of the Gregorian timekeeping scheme. Our website is restorationhealing.com. restorationhealing.com. That's where you'll see our publications. And the monarchy's website is GANLODOKILOMBO. Is it that? Yes, Ganlodo King. No. GANLODO Kingdom.com. GanlodoKingdom.com. We want to make this brief video kind of speaking to another audience, so to speak, on this one. Getting back in touch with a lot of old friends from port city of Mobile, Alabama. That is where the last so-called slave ship came, which was called the Clotilda in 1860. Getting back with old friends from there, it's reminding me that we don't have any material out that's talking the basics of how we got to where we are, why we are where we are in our journey, spiritually and culturally. Questions like, why did I leave Christianity and various other Eurocentric organizations that I once was not only part of but heavily involved with. So we'll start a little bit with our journey. Grew up in the South, Mobile, Alabama, as we mentioned. It's a place where racism abounds, but it's really, they got a good, quiet way of holding it down. Everything for us was even then was black, our family, believed in the black Jesus. You didn't see the white Jesus up like you saw in a lot of other people's houses. You didn't see that picture of Dr. King, and right next to Dr. King, you had John F. Kennedy. We just had a picture of Dr. King, Dr. King and black Jesus. It's funny because when we would go to other people's houses and see the opposite, we would think something was wrong with them. They thought something was wrong with us because we didn't have white Jesus and John F. Kennedy on our living room wall. Grew up in the church. A little bit different from most of the young men around me. I was actively involved in the church. I actually read the Christian Bible. Not in the way at that time I should have, but I read it. But in the back of my head, and we may as well just get into the meat of all this, I was forcing it. It was like forcing myself to believe this stuff. This is in retrospect. It's like something always shook me wrong about it, but I kept with it. What else was I to do? Everybody else is Christian. I'm supposed to be Christian, right? Or Muslim, one of the two. So as we get older, we're getting more of what we call that black consciousness. Became part of several civic organizations in high school. Eventually graduating, going to a historically black college and whatnot. We joined the Masonic Lodge, the Prince Hall Masonic Lodge. And when for those that don't know, when a royal, an African king or queen speaks, they don't speak in first person. They don't say I, they usually say we. But we may go back and forth between that, between I and we. So if you hear us say that, that's just out of habit of having the crown. And that crown happened in 2010, by the way. So we were heavily involved in the Prince Hall Lodge, joined a fraternity, heavily involved in that. We probably were more involved in the Prince Hall Lodge than the frat, come to think of it. But all of these were European organizations. So by this time, shortly after joining the lodge, we was really on some Black Jesus stuff, Black Bible. Everybody in the Bible was black for the most part. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Jesus, Peter. Everybody was, these people. The Hebrews were black. We were on that. And we just didn't understand when other people didn't want to be down with that kind of nationalistic thought, right? We joined the New African People's Organization, the provisional government, which is part of the provisional government of New Africa. And that is an organization that was strongly advocating to take 5 southern states as states belonging solely to African people because of the history of captivity, so-called slavery. We were part in COBRA, National Coalition of Blacks Reparations in America. So, in Malcolm X grassroots movement. So we're starting to, get our, as they said, especially back then, our consciousness, our black consciousness together, right? Something happened that should happen to all African people. Something happened to us that should happen to all our African people. We actually started to really not only read the Christian Bible, but we start to study and dissect it, even while, holding belief in it. And long story short on that, what we did not understand at the time is that we were about to study our way out of Christianity, study our way out of the belief in any kind of, any form of biblical religion. And when we say biblical religion, so you all can follow, we're talking about any religion that is based on the Christian Old Testament, the Jewish Torah, or the Septuagint, as the Greeks called it. It was those deep studies that caused us to say, hey, wait a minute, something is not right. Why are we not a Christian right now? Why am I not a Christian? Why did I leave Christianity? There are so many various answers to that. Let's deal with the content. A lot of people that I would run into, they said we should not be Christians because the people that enslaved us were Christians. The people that they use the term enslaved, we use put us in captivity. A captive is not a slave. A slave accepts their position. A captive is always trying to get free, always fighting. Our ancestors were captives. So, and that's legit reason also. But we wanted to make it very concrete all the way around, for leaving Christianity, for not having anything to do with the Christian Bible, or the Christian religion, or the Islamic religion. We wanted to see if the content of the Christian Bible, Jewish Torah, and even Islamic Quran supported what they did to our ancestors. And from the very first to the very end of the Christian Bible, it is supported. Genocide is supported, where their God says, go and destroy all these people. Not only that, rape is supported, where it says rape their women. Take the women who you want. Just rape them. It's not enough to defeat them, but rape them. You have a man named Abraham in that book who marries his cousin. That's something black folks look down on, so we thought. But when it comes to that Christian Bible that the white man and woman has given us, we got little exceptions. We hate rape, but we got an exception when it comes to the Christian Bible, but it's all through the Christian Bible. When a daughter violates any of the Levitical laws, in particular, sleeps with a man she's not married to or whatever, or sleeps with a married man, she's supposed to be stoned to death. Not only stoned to death by people, But stoned to death, the people who's supposed to throw the first stones is her father and then her brother, if she has brothers. As we said from the beginning to the end, the beginning, a woman is created from a man. That's why we've always wondered why women support Christianity so much. Now that's at the beginning. Towards the end, their Apostle Paul, who never existed, by the way, we'll get into that. Their Apostle Paul says, in the hierarchy, is Jesus, then man, then a woman. We have those, just few examples. The fact that research shows that the whole concept of E-L, you see that in the Christian Bible, mainly in the Old Testament, and also in the names of their angels, Angel, Gabriel, Michael, Gabriel. El was a deity in Canaan. A lot of the practices that the Christians now have and the Jews now have came from the very Canaanites that their Bible told them to destroy, their God rather, told them to go and destroy. Many of the customs come from those Canaanites. Look at the Jewish month of Tammuz. Tammuz was a deity amongst the Canaanites. And Tammuz is very similar to the later mythological character of Jesus, who would die, be buried for 3 days, and resurrect. Of course, that was symbolic for the people that believed in Tammuz, but it's came to be some kind of reality amongst the Christians during the Council of Nicaea in 325, at least the first council. A lot of people don't know that a lot of the stuff that they believe about Christianity came about due to the Emperor Constantine's seeing this religion as a unifying religion amongst white folks. This was a unifying religion for world domination and white supremacy. That's why he said, and we used to say this in the Knights Templar Masonic Lodge, Knights Templar degree, in hoc signo vinces. And that is a Latin phrase that says, by this sign I will conquer. And the story goes that Constantine had a vision of a flaming sword shaped in the form of a cross. Right? Go figure. By this sign I will conquer. And he began to kill his own people that would not convert. See, this is before they even got to us. At this time, we are still worshiping the deities, gods and goddesses of our ancestors and venerating our ancestors. And we had powerful civilizations going on. While they had Rome happening, we had Ghana, ancient Ghana. We had the Nok civilization. Aja culture was flourishing, it's just not written. You know, but we had all of this. It was like, and that's another thing, you know, one of the reasons we're not Christians, like, look, for us to be Christians all of a sudden after captivity, right, which started in the 1440s, for us to say, forget our ancestral deities, that's like saying we ain't have nothing before then. We owe our concept of God to the white man and white woman who came to destroy us, who came to use us to build their cities like Lisbon in Portugal, London, New Orleans, Mobile, New York. We're basically saying, you know, so we were questioning that. We was like, wait a minute, no. And so we're looking at ancient Tamaret, which most people call, well, a lot of people call ancient Kemet, and most people mistakenly call ancient Egypt. Egypt is an Arab creation, well, a Greek creation, Arab run. But we're looking at those civilizations, we're seeing that those people are African. And we're like, well, if that civilization was on the continent of Mawufe, that's an Aja foreign word for Africa, then what about the other ones? So now, at this point, after seeing the treachery of that's in the Christian Bible, the content. The content says it's cool to enslave people, to rape people, to put a woman second or third class, right? Because we could go on with examples about that. You guys should check out JesusNeverExisted.com. And it is not just talking about Jesus, it's talking about all those biblical characters. None of them never existed. So we're moving away from that, and now we want to actually study about Africa. We're studying African history. We're not trying to paint Jesus black anymore. We're not trying to paint Abraham. And when we say we and I, we're talking about my journey. We're not trying to paint these characters black anymore. Think about it. If your slave master would have been a Buddhist, the big talk, you wouldn't be a church on every corner in the black neighborhood. It would be a Buddhist temple. If your slave master would have been a Zoroastrian, would have been a Zoroastrian temple on every corner. Are you a puppet? Puppets are move any way the wind blows. Wind is blowing now, I'm standing still. That is our deity Oya, by the way. She represents the tempest wind. That is my mother deity, by the way. So you have to ask yourself as an African person, are you a puppet? Look at your history. Make history count first. History has to count first, because you're going to say, no, I'm not a puppet as an individual. I'm choosing to do this. You know, well, you're only choosing to do this because this misguided, culturally misguided and religiously misguided legacy has been passed down to you. You know, many women do crazy stuff to their hair because this was passed down to them, and often misguided black men wanted to see their women look like white women because they couldn't have white women. That's just the truth about that. So a woman, she goes and perms her hair and put blonde in her hair and all that. She thinks she's, well, I'm being an individual. Like, no, you fall into the whims of society, that puppet string. So we realized we were not puppets. We, my individual self, was not a puppet. So we started studying ancient Kemet like a lot of people did. And it was like, hold up, wait a minute. Kemet is cool, it was African tradition, African culture. But my people are from West Africa. So we began to start studying the ancient civilization of Songhai, Mali, the Yoruba people, Aja, the Ewe people, the Great Oyo Empire, Dahomey, which is where the so-called slave ship Clotilda came from an area called Dahomey, that's now southern Benin Republic, little small country to the left of Nigeria if you're looking at the map. And that is the culture that I am an Ahosu in, king in. So that was the only time, because even when we were studying Kemet or Tamaray, we still was like, this is reaching. It's like, yeah, okay, this is real. You know, a lot of the biblical stuff was fake, mythological stuff, mythological characters, but we weren't feeling it on various levels. And deep down we found out, eventually we found out that deep down what it was that we knew this didn't belong to us. We knew Kemet belonged to us, but it was far it's East Africa, Northeast Africa. So we still was having trouble, and it's a dead civilization, by the way. Things we learning about it was coming through white authors for the most part. Then after that, black authors who were reworking the works of the white authors. So we graduated from religion to spirituality and culture. And that's when the light came on. We began to exponentially realize that culture is the mandate for African people. Culture is that which will bring African people individual, familial, and national sovereignty. So the culture key has been missing for the longest. They got us trapped in religion with Islam and Christianity. it was funny. Those traditions, they teach you to neglect or forget about your culture as an African, and teach you to promote theirs. For instance, Islam. To be considered a real Muslim, you're supposed to chant the Quran in Arabic. That's not our language. That's not one of our languages. It definitely didn't come from West Africa. Everything about biblical culture takes you away from Africa. No matter how you try to blackanize them people, they are not. Those are not African people in the Christian Bible, in the Jewish Torah. Period. So everything about those traditions make you side with, unbeknownst to yourself, the enemy. Or another culture, if you want to put nicer. And our ancestors are turning over in their grave because when they go, oftentimes they go to that other realm, they become more enlightened. And they're aggravated. That's why you're seeing a great awakening amongst African people, younger African people, and older, who are not Christians, who are rejecting Christianity, rejecting anything biblical, rejecting anything Islamic. Now there's a group of our people, a lot of our people, sadly, a number of our people, who want to paint everything black. They want to say that slavery never existed, as they say slavery, but captivity never existed. That we were already here, that we were Hebrews, and the Africans sold the Hebrews. For those people, we can pretty much say there's no hope. That some kind of enlightenment comes about. This video is strictly about our growth and how we got here. Like I said, we were heavy in the church, but it's almost like basically we studied our way up out of it. Most people don't, most Africans, so-called black people, don't actually study that Christian Bible. If a lot of them study it with a real open eye, they'll study their way right up out of that. So, with what we know, all the things we know, this is just like a condensed version. With all the things we know, it would be insane for me to be a Christian. People are asking the question, people want to ask the question, why you're not a Christian? What is this thing you're doing? I remember when you was wearing polos and linen clothes, European clothing. Remember you used to be on the square. That's the way to say somebody's a Mason. Some people kind of, they want to ask the question, but they won't, and some have. So this video is partially for that. With what we know, that I would have to be literally a doppelganger from somewhere else, a manufactured clone, a machine programmed to do the wrong thing. With what I know, to be practicing Christianity or Islam or anything based on any foreign religions, but especially those two. Especially those, and Judaism, especially those three. It will never happen. It will never happen. We know too much. And speaking of knowing too much, a lot of the Christian ministers that go to the cemeteries, so-called seminaries, we call them cemeteries, they learn a lot of these facts that I know. I've sat down and talked with Catholic fathers and whatnot. They're usually the most open about the truth. They'll tell you, yeah, that's the truth. But you come in my church and tell them that on Sunday, I can come right back and say Jesus is the way, and they're gonna roll with that. So they admit to telling lies. There are several 16th century Catholic popes who spoke about how this was a good business. Catholicism was a good business, that Jesus more than likely never existed. Now, some of my friends will say, well, no, I'm not Catholic, so that don't apply to me. Yes, it does, because all of your churches come out of the Catholic Church. All this denominational stuff or non-denominational, one way or another, was part of the Catholic Church. That's the mother church for y'all. And from there, all the other ones branch out. Think about it. You've gotten this religion from the people that not only oppressed you and put you on plantations then, but they got you on other kind of plantations and doing other kinds of oppression to you now. The Muslims, the Arab Muslims brought Islam to the Africans, but it was by force. So they're not in a better boat. And in fact, they were doing these things to us hundreds of years before the Europeans did. We were locked into an eternal battle with them all the way up until the 19th century. Many of them selling our people into captivity also in the name of Islam. 95% of your people that came from West Africa were not Christians, were not Muslim. They worship deities like Shango or Yah, Adade Kofi of the Akan people, Amadioa, thunder deity of the Igbo people. They had divination systems like Afa of the Igbo and the Ewe people, Ifa of the Yoruba people, Fa of the Aja people, Kata Wakata. When we had our deities, revered our ancestors properly, we were on top. There was a segment of us that allowed ourselves to allow corruption to reign. And contact with the European was the nail in the coffin. They were the maggots to come to start eating away at the rotting flesh. But just because corruption kicked in the society does not mean that you throw away the traditions which are anti-corruption. These traditions are called Vodun. The umbrella term is Vodun. Many people call it voodoo. That is a French corruption of the word Vodun. And voodoo is more properly associated with New Orleans and not African culture. We don't do dolls, voodoo dolls and all that type of stuff. But this video isn't quite about that. It's about our journey. So we hope this clears up some questions from people and cause you to want to do research. Sad thing about some of my people is that they hear anything that's contrary to anything biblical, especially contrary to the character, mythological character Jesus, then they just shut it off. They don't even want to research it. They don't even want to study it. How can you claim to be teaching something you really don't know? You won't even study another side of it. How can you claim to believe in something you really don't know when you won't study the other side of it? I've been on both sides. I've been in there with Christianity. And it was from being in there that I saw that it had nothing to do with African people. The only thing it had to do with African people was their destruction, the destruction of their spirit, the dumbing down of their spirit, the dumbing down of their mind. That's why a lot of women who have these natural gifts live in a fog state, because Christianity and this society in general, which is a quote-unquote Christian society, dummies down that natural spiritual intuition of African women. But they just go with the flow. They just go with, it's just amazing to me that the Christian Bible is one of the most anti-woman books in the world, but the majority of the people you'll see at the church are women. So we're going to end that there. Y'all guys should check out JesusNeverExisted.com. Explore that website. Look at the facts. Don't look with emotion. Don't contemplate on this video with emotion. Plus, we're just telling you our journey, And if a man like myself from Mobile, Alabama, can do it, can elevate his spiritual mind to another level beyond the confines of the Christianity that he's been taught, then you can too. Once again, our website, restorationhealing.com. The name of the site is Quilombo Restoration and Healing. That's where you'll find my publications. And our monarchy, or so-called kingdom. We use the term monarchy because women can be monarchs also. So it's not just kingdoms. And the name of that is ganlodokingdom.com. GANLODO kingdom.com. Odigba. Odigba means goodbye to the next time in the Yoruba language.